We're carrying on with our 2024 conference previews with college football's most wild card conference, the Big 12. And when I say wild card, there's legitimately about 8 teams that could win the conference title, and I don't think anybody would be surprised. There's probably a couple more that could actually win it, and those would be considered surprises, even though the schedules and the roster set up for it. Now, of course, there's 4 new schools for this second straight year. This time it's the 4 corner schools set up, and it is the first time that Texas and Oklahoma will not be in this league, which leaves it up for basically everybody else. The only schools still in that conference that have won a league title since 2012 are Kansas State and Baylor, unless you want to count TCU's shared title with Baylor back in 2014. Now, regardless, there's basically 8 new faces in this 16-team league in the past 2 seasons. Now, before we get into it, y'all know what's up. Go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel, and subscribe to the podcast because, as you know, I do shows on the pod that you won't get over here. So, and of course, jump in the comments. Tell me what you think about these teams, who's going over, who's going under, who's going to win the conference, etc. If you want to keep up with bonus content during the season, my stats projections, bonus podcasts, picks as I make them, etc., you can do that at bettingcfb.com. It's $5 a month, or it's $50 for the year. Now, for each of these conference previews, I'm going to give you 3 reasons why each team might go over and 3 reasons why they might go under. And I'm going to give you the number of projected wins from my numbers. So let's go ahead and dive into it. We'll start off with the Arizona Wildcats. Current win total is 7.5. It opened at 8.5. You got odds of -122 to go over. That's the favorite here. Implied probability of 54.95%. And -104 to go under. The probability there is 50.98%. Odds to win the conference are plus 1,200 with an implied probability of 7.69%. Now, as for why Arizona might go over, they got a pretty dynamic offense coming back, right? Quarterback Noah Fafita. You got the wide receiver Teteroa McMillan. I hope I said that right. T-Mac, we'll call him that, leading the charge. Arizona's offense has got firepower to challenge with any defense that the Big 12 can throw at them, especially with the addition of some talented transfers who are going to add some depth and some versatility to the skill positions. You've got a new head coach, Brent Brennan. He's a proven program builder. He's got a track record of being able to turn programs around. And, you know, with his familiarity with key players like Conley, like Olsen from San Jose State, they should, it should help smooth the transition and maintain some of that momentum that Arizona has had. The defense, they've got upgrades there. They lost some pretty key pieces, but the Wildcats have added 11 experienced transfers on defense that include standout talents like Kevin Darton and Lance Kinley. They can help solidify a unit that showed some promise last season, especially late in the year. Now, as far as why Arizona might go under, the coaching transition, right? You had Jed Fish for 3 years. He really built something up there. You've got the introduction of a new system under Brennan that could lead to some growing pains, like especially early in the season, while players are adjusting to different schemes and play calling philosophies, right? So you've got defensive uncertainty here. The defense returns only 8 of the 18 contributors from last season that had, significant snaps. And while the transfer additions are promising, like you're relying on a lot of new faces. Who knows what that's going to end up looking like, especially against some of these high-powered offenses in the Big 12. And then finally, number 3, why they might go under. It's a tough schedule. Like Arizona faces a pretty challenging slate. You got road games at Utah and Kansas State. Kansas State is a non-conference game. It's something like that, especially early, Kansas State and Utah back-to-back. You've got a bye week mixed in there, but that could certainly derail the momentum. Then you've got, you look at this thing, it's Texas Tech at home, at BYU, Colorado, West Virginia right after that. Then you play at UCF. You got Houston at home. You got at TCU, da-da-da-da. Like, they should win at least 8 games, I would think, but you never know what that transition can look like. So I've got them rated number 21 in the country. Conference rating is number 3. Projected wins, I've got them at 8.13. So I've got them going over with 9 games as a projected favorite and 6 toss-up games. I'm very curious. I've been a big Brennan fan for a long time. I want to see what he's going to look like in this program. We move on with the Arizona State Sun Devils. Current win total 4.5 here. Has not moved this summer. Odds of plus 142 to go over. The probability there is 41.32%. So the under is the favorite, minus 176 to go under. Implied probability 63.77%. Odds to win the conference 120 to 1, right? Plus 12,000. That is a probability of 0.83%. Now, why Arizona State might go over their win total? Transfer talent. You got 29 new transfers coming in. That's blue chippers like quarterback Sam Leavitt. You got the running back Raleek Brown, defensive tackle Jamon Tapp. Arizona State has added significant talent that they really could quickly elevate the team's overall performance. You've got improved depth, right? Some of that transfer talent comes in, but they've strengthened key positions across the board, particularly on the offensive line and in the secondary, which really should stabilize a team that was plagued by inconsistency last season. A lot of that had to do with injuries, etc. And then third, coaching energy. Like Kenny Dillingham is awesome. Like he's youthful, he's energetic. His offensive acumen could really get them fired up, and they could pull off some wins that they are not supposed to, especially early, because they got a lot of toss-ups early. If you've got an improved roster and a second year to implement his system, they could maybe surprise a few people along the way. Now, for the bad news, why they might go under. This is still an ongoing rebuild, right? Like, despite the fact that you brought in 29 new players in the portal, it's a massive challenge to bring in that many guys, and it might take time for the group to gel, especially against a tough schedule that includes 7 top 50 opponents, right? You do have quarterback uncertainty here. You've got, the potential true freshman starter Sam Leavitt. Late transfer Jeff Sims came into the mix. Leavitt won the job, but what is he going to look like? So we'll see. And then of course we have tough schedules, right? This is a tough schedule. You got matchups against Utah, against Kansas State, against Oklahoma State. That's the top 3 in the conference. You got UCF coming in. You got to go to Arizona at the end of the year. I mean, it's pretty brutal. And then, my God, your first conference game, you got to go to Texas Tech. You got to go to Texas State. And that is a difficult place to play. I've got them rated number 74 in the country. Conference rating number 15, so they're not dead last. Projected wins, I've got 4.06, which is slightly under their win total. I've got 3 games as a projected favorite and 7 toss-up games. I'm curious what Dillingham is going to do here. All right, we move to the Baylor Bears. Current win total 5.5. Has not moved this summer. Odds of minus 105 to go over. That is 51.22% probability, and minus 115 to go under. That is implied probability of 53.49%. Their odds to win the conference, 80 to 1, plus 8,000. And they've got an implied probability there of 1.23%. Now, for why they might go over their win total, this is a pretty experienced roster. It's the 5th highest returning production in the country, according to SP Plus, Bill Connolly. And you got key transfers like quarterback DeQuan Finn, wide receiver Ashton Hawkins. Baylor's got the talent and the experience to make a pretty big jump from last season. Not to mention, let's talk about the offensive potential here. The combination of Finn, like his dual threat ability and a strong supporting cast that includes Baldwin and Jackson Jr., it gives the Bears some firepower. Not to mention, you've got a new scheme with Jake Spavital coming in, right? So maybe he's able to flip a switch and they're able to figure some stuff out, especially in some of these high-scoring Big 12 matchups against these teams that have good offenses, right? And then third, you got a favorable schedule, right? They're favored in several key games. And if they can capitalize on some of these early winnable matchups where they're not, yeah. Like I've got them a dog at Colorado. They could win that. I've got them a dog at Iowa State. They could win that. Got them a dog at Texas Tech. They could win that. There's a lot of games that they could absolutely win. Now, as far as why they might not go over their win total, there are still defensive concerns, right? Everybody knows Aranda. He's got a great defensive pedigree. I guess we could call it that. But the Bears were among the worst in the nation last year. They were number 132 against the pass. And the defensive line is still a pretty big question mark heading into this year. They've been inconsistent. That's the second part of this. They were 3-9 last year. It wasn't a fluke. Like, the team just struggled everywhere. And even with some improvements, it's uncertain whether or not they can consistently perform at a higher level for a full season. And finally, you got tough matchups, right? I talked about the schedule having some spots where they could win, but it's tough, right? You got games against Utah, against Texas, against Kansas State. Or not Texas. What am I talking about? You got Utah. I don't know why I put it in my notes like that. Baylor's schedule is difficult, but it ain't the worst, right? You don't have Kansas State. You don't have Utah on this schedule. You do have Oklahoma State, but you get them at home. You got to go to Morgantown in November. You end the season with Kansas. By that point, who knows who's going to be playing quarterback for them. I don't know why I put that in my notes that way. The schedule isn't awful. They ought to be able to handle this. I'm going to be disappointed if Baylor doesn't go over this 5.5. Aranda, it's up to you. I've got them rated number 48. Their conference rating is number 11. Projected wins are 5.97, so I do have them going over. 4 games as projected favorites, 9 toss-up games. That is insane. That is absolutely insane. All right, we keep it moving. The BYU Cougars. Oh, yes. Current win total 4.5. That is the same as their opener, so it hadn't moved. Odds of plus 104 to go over. That's a probability of 49.02% and minus 128 to go under. That is probability of 56.14%. Odds to win the conference is 140 to 1. So 0.71 probability for them to win the Big 12. Now, as far as why BYU might go over, improving on defense, right? You got 7 freshmen or sophomores that gained significant experience last year. The Cougars defense could see some pretty big growth this year, especially when you got standout players like Tyler Batty and the cornerback Jacob Robinson leading the way this year. You got a pretty significant home field advantage, right? LaVell Edwards Stadium, it's a tough place to play. BYU has a chance to pull off some upsets against, some higher-rated teams. They got Oklahoma State at home. They got Arizona at home. They got Kansas State at home. Kansas is coming in. You got a passionate home crowd. Use it to your advantage. And, of course, roster stability. You return key contributors on both sides of the ball. Includes 4 of the top 6 offensive linemen, 7 of the top 8 receivers. You got continuity now. It could lead to maybe a more consistent performance compared to last season. Because last season was, that was rough. As far as why they might go under, you do have quarterback uncertainty here. Jake Retzlaff, he was pretty unimpressive with his late season starts last year. You got a crowded quarterback room with no clear standout. The offense might continue to struggle, especially against the Big 12, right? I mean, where I've got them rated, I got several. I got 6 guaranteed losses on the schedule. Come on, BYU, you're better than that. You got an inadequate run defense, right? The Cougars' run defense was a big weakness last year. You only got 1 returning lineman that's over 300 pounds. They could get pushed around quite a bit by some of these physical Big 12 teams. I mean, that's going to just prolong the defensive issues, right? And then, of course, you do have a challenging schedule. Schedule is ranked number 25 in strength of schedule. You got tough road games. You got a lot of your toughest games are at home, luckily, but those are against the most difficult teams on your schedule other than Utah. But you got to go to UCF, you got to go to Utah, you get Oklahoma State, Arizona, Kansas, Houston at home. You do get to go on the road and play against Arizona State, but this is going to be tough to find 5 wins, really. So I've got them rated number 73. Conference rating is number 14. That's dead last. Projected wins 4.2. That is slightly under. And you got 3 games as a projected favorite and 5 toss-up games. So those games that are within 1 score. So anything from 8 points either side is what we're looking at. Is Sataki going to get fired? This is. I really thought they would fare a little bit better when they got into the Big 12. Next up, the Cincinnati Bearcats. Current win total 5.5. Of course, same as the opener. Odds of minus 120 to go over. That's the favorite here. Implied probability of 54.55% and minus 102 to go under. That is implied probability of 50.50%. Odds to win the conference are 80 to 1 as well with this team. And that is a 1.23% implied probability. As far as why Cincinnati might go over their win total, Offensive continuity. You got all 5 offensive line starters coming back. You got Corey Kiner leading the rushing attack again. He had a really strong 2023 season. I mean, Satterfield's got the foundation here to control tempo and build a more consistent offense than what they were doing last year. You got a winnable early schedule, right? The first 4 games, that includes matchups against Towson, against Miami of Ohio, against Pitt, against Houston. I mean, that's prime opportunity, right? You should be able to build some early momentum, set the tone for the rest of the season, especially right there at home. You're favored in 3 of those. The fact that you are a dog at Miami of Ohio is a little bit terrifying. But anyway. And then the third one, why they might go over, transfer impact, right? Key additions like Indiana transfer quarterback Brendan Sorsby. You got multiple defensive upgrades. Since he has the potential to significantly improve on both offense and defense, gives them a real shot to get to a bowl game this year. Like, this was one of the most underachieving teams in the country last year. Now, as far as why they might go under, you got quarterback uncertainty here. Brendan Sorsby, though pretty promising, he remains unproven at the Power 5 level. Any struggles at the quarterback position could derail an offense that was pretty inconsistent in 2023. There's still defensive vulnerabilities, right? Despite adding these transfers, the defense still's got major question marks, right? Especially in the secondary. If you don't have that shored up, you allow some big plays, things are not going to go well trying to close out some of these tight games, right? And then, of course, you have transition challenges, right? Satterfield's second year appears to be maybe in hot water, I guess you could say. But he's still trying to find his footing here. You got significant turnover in some key positions, since he might struggle to get that chemistry down. And if they do, well, I mean, week 5, you're headed to Texas Tech. You got a bye week, then you got to go down to Orlando and face UCF. You got Colorado on the road. You got West Virginia at home. You got 2 games against Iowa State and Kansas State back-to-back, and then you close out with TCU. Like, this ain't for the faint of heart. I'll tell you that. I've got them rated number 68. I've got their conference rating number 13. Their projected wins, I've got them at 5.11. So I've got them slightly under the 5.5. I've got them 4 games as a favorite and then 7 toss-up games. And so Satterfield might want to get to a bowl game this year. Just saying. We move to Colorado. Colorado Buffalo. Current win total of 5.5. Odds -128 to go over. That's probability of 56.14% and plus 104 to go under. That is probability of 49.02%. Their odds to win the conference are 25-1. It's plus 2,500. That's an implied probability of 3.85%. Now, why Colorado might go over their win total? They got elite dudes at the skill positions, right? You got Shedeur Sanders at quarterback. He's likely going to be a first-round NFL draft pick. You got a dynamic receiving core. Jimmy Horn, Travis Hunter plays over there as well. Travis Hunter might be the best player in all of college football. Like, he's absurd. So Colorado certainly got the firepower to be able to outscore opponents and stay in pretty much every game because they can score from anywhere. You got defensive upgrades, right? Coach Prime brought in a slew of impact transfers on defense. That includes proven disruptors like Dayan Hayes from Pitt, B.J. Green, which could transform last year's vulnerable unit into a strength. They did switch over defensive coordinators, brought in a guy from the NFL. We'll see. And then they have a fairly manageable schedule. Like, the early part of Colorado's schedule features winnable games against, North Dakota State, against Nebraska. Don't pay attention to that number that I've got up here for North Dakota State, but still. Should be able to beat Colorado State, even on the road, right? You got Baylor coming in at home. There's winnable games here. They should be able to do this. So if you can build some momentum early, then yeah, absolutely, you could push for bowl eligibility. Now, as far as why they might not go over the win total, why they might go under, you got offensive line concerns still, right? Despite some new additions, it's still a question mark, and we don't know if it's going to improve. If it doesn't, Shedeur Sanders is going to be facing constant pressure, potentially, that limits the effectiveness of the offense if he can't get the ball out or if he doesn't have time to sit back there and find his receivers. Number 2, you got inexperience, right? 11 transfer starters. Like, who knows what the chemistry is going to be like with these guys. So if that doesn't work, especially against some of these more Big 12 or more, I guess, established Big 12 opponents, who knows? And then third, hype against reality, right? Like, there is so much hype around this program. Like, it might overshadow some of the real challenges that they face in a pretty tough Big 12 conference. They jumped from 1 win to 4 wins last year, but they lost like 8 of their last 9 games. And, the roster is a little bit better. Well, the starters are a little bit better. I don't know how much better the depth is. But you look at the back half of their schedule. Kansas State, like, you got to play at UCF. You get a bye. You get Kansas State at home, at Arizona, home against Cincinnati. That one should be able to win. But then at Texas Tech, Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma State. Nobody in the Big 12 office did them any favors. Like, that is brutal. Absolutely brutal. I've got them rated number 50 in the country. Conference rating is number 12. I've got, you're going to like this, projected wins, 5.76. So slightly over 4 games as projected favorites and 10 toss-up games. This is going to be interesting. Like, I am super curious what to think about this bunch. But Coach Prime, doing it up. The Houston Cougars, current win total 3.5. It's not exactly what you want to hear if you're a Houston fan, but also that is the shape that Dana Holgorsen left this program in. Enter Willie Fritz. You got odds of minus 142 to go over, so that's 58.68% probability. Plus 116 to go under, so the over, obviously the favorite. But plus 116 probability is 46.3%. Odds to win the conference this year, plus 10,000. That's 100 to 1. That is a little less than 1% probability. As far as why Houston might go over, Willie Fritz is a proven winner. Like, he knows how to turn programs around. And his track record suggests that he could maybe surprise a few people in his first season here. You got quarterback potential, right? You got Donovan Smith, and you combine him with Zion Chris's dual threat abilities. Like, I think Zion Chris actually fits the offense better, but Donovan Smith is somewhat of an enigma, right? It got the arm strength, got the size, all that kind of stuff. Houston's offense has the potential to be pretty dynamic and pretty hard to stop, especially because they got some talent in the receiving corps, right? And then, of course, an improved defense. Defense was putrid last year, but you brought in a bunch of defensive transfers. That includes proven disruptors like Keith Cooper, Kendra Gant. They could absolutely transform a unit that wasn't great last year into one that can at least keep games close and give the offense a chance to win some ball games. As far as why Houston might not go over, like why they might go under, the defense is inexperienced. You got 17 new defensive transfers. You got only 4 returning players. The defense might take a little while to gel. And if that is the case, your non-conference games, UNLV, Oklahoma, and Rice, those are all losable. So that ain't great. You got offensive line concerns. You replace 3 starters on that offensive line. You're bringing in transfers, JUCO players. Who knows, again, about the chemistry. It might limit the effectiveness of whoever ends up starting at quarterback. And then the schedule is ridiculous. Like, multiple ranked teams in the Big 12. I mentioned that non-conference slate. This is tough. This is tough. I don't know where you're going to find the wins because you got basically every difficult team on the schedule. Like, it's hard. So, I've got them rated number 80. Got Houston dead last, number 16 in the conference. Projected wins, though, I've got them at 3.89. I've got them slightly over. Part of that is just because I kind of trust Willie Fritz to get some wins here somewhere. You do get to close out with BYU. Got to find some other ones somewhere. Playing on the road at Cincinnati, at TCU, at Kansas, at Arizona. You get Utah and Kansas State as your home games, and Iowa State. Like, this is brutal. Absolutely brutal. So I've got them 3.89, going slightly over. 2 games as a projected favorite. And, of course, 6 toss-up games. That is very, very difficult. Very difficult to do. So I don't think the chances for Willie Fritz to have a good first season are there, but weirder things have happened. You never know. Donovan Smith's a quarterback. He's Schrodinger's quarterback. So we'll see. The Iowa State Cyclones, their current win total is 7.5. Odds of minus 115 to go over. That's 53.49% probability. And minus 105 to go under. That is 51.22%. Their odds to win the conference are plus 950. You've got an implied probability of 9.52. Now, as far as why Iowa State might go over, the returning production, right? They're, number one or number two, depending on who you look at as far as returning production. They're bringing back key players like the quarterback Rocco Becht, who's a really big surprise last year. He was pretty awesome. You got a massive offensive line, which should lead to a more cohesive and effective unit on both sides of the ball. You got defensive strength, right? The Cyclones boast a defense that finished in the top 30 of the SP Plus rankings last year. And with nearly all primary linemen and secondary members returning, this unit has the potential to be a top 20 defense, especially if they can develop a pass rush. And then you got Matt Campbell, like proven resilience here. His teams are known for playing above their talent level. And with a schedule that is full of close games, their experience, their toughness, right, could lead to them eking out enough wins to go over that total. Now, as far as why they might go under, there is a lack of explosive talent, right? Despite these high returning production numbers, Iowa State's overall roster strength is, bottom half of the FBS. And so while they're experienced, they may not have that high-end talent that they need to consistently win games in a very competitive Big 12. The offense was pretty inconsistent last year. Like, Rocco Becht did show promise last year, but there was inconsistency and a relatively unknown, or I guess unproven receiving core could struggle against some of the better defenses, especially in some of these high-pressure situations. And then tough, close games, right? Iowa State has notoriously struggled in one-score games. They won just 3 of their last 16, and typically you would blame that on the coaching, but everybody seems to love Matt Campbell, so, the schedule is loaded with tight matchups. If they can't close out some of those, that's going to be really difficult. Really, really difficult. I've got them rated number 35 in the country. Conference rating, I've got them number 8. Projected wins, 6.92, so I've actually got them going under, but I've got them favored, or at least projected to be favored, in 7 games, and I've got 9 toss-up games here. 9 toss-ups is a lot of one-score games. Not ideal, certainly. Tickets to everything are expensive these days, and I know you're like me. You want to catch a big game or a concert, maybe even tickets to a show. Why not save some money every time you buy tickets? Visit Ticketsmarter.com or use the TicketSmarter mobile app and use the promo code WCE10, that's WCE10, to save $10 on any order of $100 or more, or use WCE20, that's WCE20, to save $20 on an order of $300 or more. It's not a one-time sign-up bonus or anything. Seriously, every time you buy tickets, you can save money on already great deals. So do yourself a favor. Think smarter with TicketSmarter. We carry on with the Kansas Jayhawks. Current win total 8.5. That is the same as the opener. Odds of plus 138 to go over. That's probability of 42.02%. And minus 170 to go under. That is 62.96%. So under certainly the favorite here. Odds to win the conference, plus 1,000. That's 10 to 1. Implied probability of 9.09%. Now, as far as why Kansas might go over their win total, they got an explosive offense. So long as the quarterback, Jalen Daniels, is back there, along with the running back, Devin Neal, you're going to have, you've got a veteran receiving core there as well. The Jayhawks do boast one of the most dynamic offenses in the Big 12. They're going to be capable of outscoring any of their opponents that are on the schedule here. Number 2, they do have a favorable schedule. You see it right here on the screen. Lindenwood, Illinois, UNLV, West Virginia, they can beat any of these teams. And it's a soft schedule, winnable games early. You got a favorable setup that avoids some of the conference's toughest teams. And there is certainly a path here to get to at least 8 wins. And of course, to get over the 8.5, you got to get to 9. There's a shot they could do that. So your toughest, your road games, you got Kansas State on the road. Yeah, that's difficult. Baylor's pretty tough. But then you got BYU and Arizona State. The 2 worst teams in the conference are your road games. So the issue is that, we'll talk about the home games here in a little bit. And then number 3, experience coaching. Lance Leipold has steadily built this program into a contender. And with the offensive talent that he's got on hand, he has got the tools to guide Kansas to one of their best seasons in recent history. Now, as far as why they might go under their win total,
injury concerns, right? Jalen Daniels' health is a question mark, to put it mildly, right? His absence could severely impact the offense's efficiency. There ain't no Jason Bean on the roster anymore, right? And that could leave Kansas struggling to keep up, in a very competitive Big 12 if some of these teams look a little bit better than we think that they will. So, number 2, defensive inconsistency. Like, despite some improvements, the defense certainly has got, some vulnerabilities, particularly in stopping the run and creating consistent pressure, which could lead to shootouts that the Jayhawks might not always win. And then, of course, number 3, depth issues. Kansas faces depth concerns, especially on the offensive line and in the front 6 on defense, which could become problematic over the course of a long season, particularly if injury strikes. So, also, again, tossing this one in, I brought up the home games. They don't play really a single home game. Like, the conference games are at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. That's the home of the Chiefs. It's like 40 minutes from campus. And the non-con games are at Children's Mercy Park, which only holds about 18,000 people. So there's not really a big, home field advantage here. But regardless, I've got their rating nationally at number 28. Conference rating is number 5. I've got them projected at 8.06 wins, so that is under the 8.5. I've got them a projected favorite in 10 games, and I've got them in 9 toss-up games. So 9 games that are projected to be within 1 score. That's pretty intense. Pretty intense. All right, we will keep it moving. The Kansas State Wildcats. Current win total, 9.5. That is the same as the opener. Odds of plus 118 to go over. That is 45.87% probability. And minus 144 to go under. That is the favorite at 59.02% probability. Their odds to win the conference, plus 400. That's an implied probability of 20% on that. As for why Kansas State might go over their win total, you got emerging talent here at quarterback. Avery Johnson, he has shown flashes of brilliance, right? And you add in the dynamic duo of the running back DJ Giddens and, of course, wide receiver Jace Brown. This offense could be even more explosive than last season. It gives K-State a legitimate shot at a double-digit win season. They got dudes. They actually got dudes. Consistent defense. The Wildcats return a strong defensive core with 13 players who saw significant snaps last season. That includes standout linebackers Austin Moore and Desmond Purnell. Makes it likely that they're going to maintain their reputation as a top defensive unit in the Big 12, which they have been under Chris Kleiman. And as I brought up Kleiman, proven coaching is number 3. He has demonstrated his ability to maximize the potential of this roster. And, with their track record of outperforming expectations, there's a lot of confidence that he's going to be able to guide this team to another successful season, possibly getting to 10 wins here. Now, as far as why Kansas State might go under their win total, you got inexperience at key positions, right? You got the departure of key offensive players like Will Howard, and you got 3 starting offensive linemen gone. There's uncertainty at a bunch of key spots. And, of course, you got a young quarterback in Avery Johnson who it showed brilliance, flashes of it, but you don't know what he's going to be like on a down-to-down basis. You got roster depth concerns. Despite a solid defense, the overall roster strength is lower than previous seasons. If you go up against some deeper, more talented teams in the Big 12, you could end up having some slip-ups, even if you feel like you were the better team with the better chemistry. And then, of course, it's a pretty difficult schedule, all things taken into consideration. You got matchups against Oklahoma State, Kansas, Colorado. Do we want to count Colorado? You got to go on the road to Tulane. That's not going to be easy, although it's probably better that it's at the beginning of the season. But, yeah, you got a road game at Iowa State to end the year. That is – you lose 2 of those, and you're right at that 10 mark. Anything more than that, and you might be in trouble. So the way that it's set up is not ideal. Game at Colorado and then at West Virginia the very next week. Yeah, count me out on that. Count me out. I've got them rated number 18. Conference rating is number 2. Projected wins, 8.41. So I'm going under with 12 games as projected favorites and 6 toss-up games. All right, we'll keep it moving. And I pressed the wrong one. Hold on. There we go. The Oklahoma State Cowboys. Current win total is 8.5. That's up from the 7.5 opener. Odds of plus 122 to go over. That is 45.05% probability. and minus 150, the favorite here, to go under with an implied probability of 60%. Their odds to win the conference are plus 800. That's 8 to 1. That is an implied probability of 11.11%. Why Oklahoma State might go over their win total? A lot of returning experience here. 18 returning starters, including the entire offensive line and the nation's best running back in Ollie Gordon, right? The Cowboys have certainly got the chemistry, the cohesion, maybe even the firepower needed to surpass their win total, especially in a wide-open Big 12. Number two, they got veteran leadership, right? And that has something to do with the key experience. But quarterback Alan Bowman, he's inconsistent in spots and whatnot, but he does bring years of experience and stability to the offense that could translate into more consistent performances and some close wins in a lot of what these are projecting to be really tight matchups. And then defensive continuity. You got 13 key defenders returning. That includes standout linebackers Nick Martin and Colin Oliver. The defense, poised to improve under Brian Nardo. It's going to make it tough for opponents to score, and it gives Oklahoma State a solid chance to control games. Now, as far as why they might go under, there is quarterback uncertainty, right? Bowman was not the most consistent guy last year. He has a high interception rate, a high turnover play rate. You keep giving the ball to the wrong team, could hold the offense back, right? Especially against some of these stronger defenses in the Big 12. So, there's an over-reliance on Ollie Gordon, right? Ollie Gordon is a star. Defenses are going to sell out to stop him. Bowman is going to have to make plays under pressure, which could expose the offense's limitations and lead to struggles against tougher opponents. And then it's a pretty difficult schedule, right? Several coin flip games against teams like Utah, Kansas State, TCU. Even a slight drop in performance from last year could result in multiple losses. It could be difficult for Oklahoma State to get to 9 wins. Their rating is number 22. Their conference rating, I've got them at number 4 in the conference. Projected wins at 7.84, which is under. And I've got 10 games as projected favorites and 8 toss-up games. The TCU Horned Frogs. Current win total 7.5. The line has not moved. Odds of plus 122 to go over. That's probability of 45.05%. And minus 150 to go under. That, of course, is the favorite here. Implied probability of 60% on that. Their odds to win the conference, 21 to 1. That's plus 2,100 with an implied probability of 4.55%. Now, why TCU might go over their win total? They've got offensive potential, right? Josh Hoover did show flashes of brilliance last season. They've got a solid group of receivers. The Horned Frogs have got the firepower to be able to outscore some of their opponents, especially if Hoover continues to develop and command the offense, right? Defensive improvement, of course. You bring in Boise State head coach Andy Avalos as the DC. You couple that with the return of key defensive players and new pass rushing talent. You could see TCU's defense rebound and play a pretty pivotal role in securing some close wins this year. And then, of course, experience in close games. They went 0-4 last year in one-score games, and their experience in those tight contests could translate into better decision-making, better execution in some of these critical moments that could get them over that win total of 7.5. Now, as for why they might go under, well, the offensive line is having to be completely rebuilt, so that's not ideal. You got a largely new O-line, unproven running back group. The offense might struggle to protect Hoover. They might struggle to establish a consistent ground game. Stuff like that can lead to big inefficiencies. You got turnover in key positions, right? The heavy reliance on transfers, especially on defense and the offensive line. Continuity issues, especially early in the season, that could be an issue. And, you're playing on the road at Stanford. You got UCF in week 3, You play at SMU, at Kansas after that. That's not how you want to start the season. And as I just mentioned there, it's a tough Big 12 schedule. You face a challenging slate, several toss-up games, even the slightest dip in performance from last season, and last season wasn't great, it could result in multiple losses, right? And doing that, it's going to be tough to get to 8 because you can only afford to give up 4. So I've got them rated number 30 in the country. Conference rating is number 6. Projected wins, I've got them at 6.93. So that's under. But I've got them a favorite in 9 games. 10 games, I have them a toss-up. So 10 games are expected to be within one score. I mean, it's going to be tight. It's going to be really, really tight. We move on. The Texas Tech Red Raiders. Their current win total, 7.5. That number has not moved this summer. Odds of -115 to go over. That is the favorite right now, 53.49%. And -105 to go under. That is an implied probability of 51.22%. Their odds to win the conference are plus 1,800. That's an implied probability of 5.26%. Now, why Texas Tech might go over their win total? They got a versatile offense, right? You got the explosive Taj Brooks at running back. He returns to anchor the run game. And you got a revamped offensive line that's bolstered by some pretty experienced transfers. That means the Red Raiders have got tools to be able to control the tempo and wear down defenses. That creates a path to exceeding their win total. You got proven resilience, right? Joey McGuire, like he has shown, and that team program has shown it can adapt and it can overcome some challenges, as evidenced, by their ability to shift from a pass-heavy offense in year 1 to a ground-and-pound approach in year 2. That makes them a really tough team to be able to game plan against. And then number 3, a favorable early schedule. Texas Tech's favored in its first 5 games. Now, I've only got them favored by just, 1.19 points on the road at Washington State. But regardless, they are favored in their first 5 games. It gives them a really strong opportunity to build some momentum before entering the tougher stretches of the Big 12 schedule. Now, as far as why Texas Tech might not go over their win total, why they might go under, quarterback uncertainty, right? Baron Morton, everybody there was talk around Lubbock of him being the next in line, the next great one, whatever. But lingering injury concerns, the lack of spring practice reps, how is that offense going to be able to develop the necessary chemistry, especially with a brand new receiving core and offensive line? You got defensive inexperience, right? A young and relatively unproven defense. Texas Tech might struggle against more experienced offenses in the Big 12, particularly if they deal with any injuries, because they don't have a bunch of depth in some of the key positions. And then tough, close games, right? Despite the favorable start where they're favored, I think 4 of the first 5 are guaranteed wins because you got 4 of them at home. But after that, they face several toss-up games later in the season where even minor mistakes could result in, some losses there. It's going to make it difficult to surpass that 7.5 win total. I've got them rated number 38 in the country, conference rating number 9, projected wins 7.57, so slightly over. I've got them favored or projected to be favored in 8 games, and I got 8 toss-up games here. Okay. Like, I'm curious to see what Joey McGuire is going to do here, but they got a shot. This is always one of those dark horse kind of teams that if everything goes exactly right, they could really stun some people. We continue on. We go down to Orlando, the UCF Knights. Good old Gus Malzahn here. Current win total, 7.5. Odds of -134 to go over. That's implied probability of 57.26%. And plus 110 to go under. That is an implied probability of 47.62%. Their odds to win the conference are plus 800, so 8-1, with an implied probability of 11.11%. At one point this summer, I think you could have gotten UCF to win the conference at like plus 1,600. This has been the buzzy dark horse candidate to win the Big 12 this year. Now, as far as why UCF might go over their win total, got a dynamic offense, right? KJ Jefferson comes in, he transfers in, leads a potent offense. It includes 2 different 1,400-yard rushers in R.J. Harvey and Penny Boone, who came over from Toledo. The Knights have got the firepower to be able to dominate on the ground, and they can open up some pretty big play opportunities in the passing game. KJ Jefferson can throw the ball so long as he's got protection and a little bit of time, right? Strategic transfers, right? Gus Malzahn's aggressive use of the transfer portal has injected proven talent into key positions, particularly on defense, where additions like nickelback Deshaun Pace, defensive tackle Lee Hunter, they can elevate the unit's performance and help secure more victories. And on top of that, they got a pretty favorable schedule, right? This thing is manageable. It includes key home games against Utah and Arizona at really, really good times. This positions the Knights well to build some momentum and capitalize on their talent. They got a shot to go over this win total for sure. Now, as far as why they might go under, why is this thing only at 7.5 if they're plus 800 to win the conference? Defense, defense, defense. Despite the influx of talent, defense is still a work in progress. They got significant turnover and reliance on some new transfers. You could probably expect some inconsistent performances and really some struggles in stopping some of the high-powered Big 12 offenses. You know, they got Colorado coming in. They do have to play at Florida. You know, if they play at TCU, what does that offense look like under Sonny Dykes and Kendall Briles? Arizona is there. Utah at the end of the year. We'll see. We'll see. They got quarterback concerns, right? KJ Jefferson, I mean, Gus Malzahn said that he's the closest thing to Cam Newton that he's had since Cam. I mean, that's bananas. So he's certainly got potential, but he does have a history of some inconsistency and maybe some failure to fully reach his potential at Arkansas. So there's questions about whether or not he can be the reliable quarterback that they need to be able to get through this tough Big 12 schedule. He did not look great last year at Arkansas. Part of that probably had to do with the offensive coordinator hire from Sam Pittman, Dan Enos, but we shall see. Like, it might have been a little bit of both. You can never tell with these things. You got tough road games. UCF faces some really tough away games. That includes trips to, trips to TCU, Florida, Iowa State, at West Virginia, like Morgantown late in the season. That's going to be rough. Even minor mistakes or defensive lapses could lead to critical losses, right? And so it makes it harder for the Knights to be able to reach their win total at that point. I've got them rated number 39. I've got them rated number 10 in the conference. Projected wins, I've got them at 7.7, which is slightly over. So I've got them a projected favorite in 6 games, and I've got them in 8 toss-up games. So a lot of one-score games here, 8 one-score games I would expect. They got the talent to get there. They just got to make sure everything is gelling the way it's supposed to. We got 2 more. The Utah Utes. Current win total is 9.5. That's the same as the opener. You got odds of minus 158 to go over. That is 61.24% probability, so that is the favorite. And then plus 128 to go under. That is a probability of 43.86%. Now, odds to win the conference. Odds for them to win the Big 12 are plus 320. They are the favorite here. Implied probability of 23.81% here. Why Utah might go over? They got experienced leadership. Cam Rising is back at quarterback for the 14th season, it seems like. He's got key offensive weapons back like Brant Keithy, the tight end. They got a bolstered backfield. Utah has got firepower. They got veteran presence. And this is a team that could potentially dominate the Big 12, and they could get to 10 or 11 wins. They've got a stout defense. Yeah, Utah's defense consistently ranks in the top 25 of SP+. They return 12 of their top 17 defenders. They got depth. They got experience. All the things that you need to be able to control games and to shut down some of these high-powered Big 12 offenses. They got, a tough home field advantage. They're playing at Rice-Eccles Stadium. It's a huge advantage. You got altitude. You got environment in Salt Lake City. It's a daunting place for, it was for Pac-12 opponents. I would assume it's going to be the same for Big 12 opponents, right? This is going to increase Utah's chances of actually going undefeated at home when you look at it. Southern Utah, Baylor, Arizona, TCU, BYU, Iowa State, all at home. Now, as far as why they might go under their win total, there is offensive uncertainty, right? Like Cam Rising is back, but the offense struggled mightily last year. They were 95th in team performance, and it's unclear if they can fully rebound and consistently put up some points against some of these top Big 12 defenses. You got injury concerns, right? Key players like Rising and Keithy, they're coming off significant injuries. If they're not at full strength, or if they get injured again, Utah's offense could be in trouble again. So you lose one of those guys in the middle of a tight game, you could end up with an unexpected loss. Then you got tough road games, right? I talked about the home schedule and how they would probably be able to win those games. They face challenging road games. Oklahoma State on the road, UCF on the road. You got Colorado on the road. Arizona, these are not easy games to just, toss on your helmet and go win. So we'll see exactly what that means. Their rating, I've got them rated number 17 in the country. In the Big 12, I've got them rated number 1. So I've got them the best rated team in the Big 12. Projected wins, though, I've got them 8.53, so I've got them going under, and some of that has to do with the scheduling. But I've got them a favorite in 11 games, and I've got them in 6 different toss-up games. Pay attention to this, because this might be the last season that you get to see Kyle Whittingham. Just going to toss that out there. I think he might hang it up after this, especially if they have a really good year. That's kind of what I'm thinking. All right, last one on the board. The West Virginia Mountaineers. Current win total is 6.5. That's the same as the opener. Odds of minus 128 to go over. That probability is 56.14%. So the favorite is certainly to go over. And plus 104 to go under. That's implied probability of 49.02%. Their odds to win the conference are plus 1,600 with an implied probability of 5.88%. Now, why West Virginia might go over their win total? With Garrett Green, they got a pretty explosive offense. I mean, he's dual threat. He's got a potent running back duo in C.J. Donaldson and Jaheim White. I mean, Neil Brown's bunch has got a lot of firepower. I know I've said firepower a lot today, but they can outscore opponents, right? They got stability on the offensive line. Returned 3 starters. That includes some key additions, right? Xavier Ballsy. That ensures that Green's going to have, a clean pocket potentially. The protection that he needs to be able to maximize what he can do. You do that, Neil Brown, I trust him to be able to sustain drives and control the clock. And then you got aggressive coaching, right? That's number 3 here. Neil Brown's willingness to take risks on 4th down. You couple that with a retooled defense that addresses some of last season's weaknesses. Could lead to, some critical stops, some game-changing moments that push the Mountaineers over the win total. As far as why they might go under, defensive uncertainty, right? They did bring in several transfers, right? But there's still question marks here, especially in the secondary. They were number 85 in QBR last year, QBR allowed. Any regression there could lead to some pretty high-scoring losses. So if they were getting some shootouts, that's not where you want to be. You got a tough schedule, right? Challenging midseason stretch. You got games against Kansas, Oklahoma State, Iowa State, Kansas State, and Arizona. At the end of the year, you got UCF at home and then at Texas Tech. That's how do you maintain consistency there? Because you could certainly drop some of these games on the road. You got to play Penn State to start off, and you got to go to Pitt in week 3. That's just rough. And then, of course, the reliance on Green's development, right? Garrett Green has shown that he's certainly capable. He's stood out in a few games for sure. But inconsistent as a passer, right? 53% completion rate. Pressure to take the next step might hurt this offense, especially if opposing defenses key in on his rushing ability. Their rating, I've got them number 31 in the country, number 7 in the Big 12. Projected wins, I've got them 6.26, which is slightly under. But I do have them favored, or projected to be favored, in 7 games. But I got 10 toss-ups here. Only 1 guaranteed loss, 1 guaranteed win. The rest are coin flips. This is going to be nuts. Absolutely nuts. So, who's going to make the conference title game? I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm going to trust Utah. I'm going to trust Coach Whittingham. He's got an experienced veteran group, especially since their schedule looks easier than when they were in the Pac-12. And I'll go with the other favorite as well. I'll say Kansas State makes it to Arlington also, behind the arm and wheels of new standout quarterback Avery Johnson. And, of course, their skill weapons there. Kleiman has got a well-built offensive and defensive line. And the new offensive coordinator, Matt Wells, I think Kansas State could be pretty good. I'm going to take Utah to win this thing, though. So let's go ahead and wrap it up. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and, of course, the podcast. And if you want to help out the channel, you want to keep it growing, I would certainly appreciate that. You can become a member at bettingcfb.com. For Winning Cures Everything, God bless college football, and we will see you guys on the next one.
Thanks for listening to Winning Cures Everything. Make sure and follow me on Twitter at GaryWCE. If you want to toss in a question, you can email me, Gary@winningcureseverything.com. Make sure and hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.